1st of November, 1755. All Saints' Day, Lisbon, Portugal. Population 275,000 at 9:40 a.m. The ground began to shake. Not the usual tremor. Something else. The shaking lasted 3.5 minutes in seismic terms. That duration is catastrophic. A typical destructive earthquake exhausts itself in 15 to 30 seconds. This one refused to stop. The source was 120 miles southwest, beneath the Atlantic seafloor, the Azores-Gibraltar Transform Fault, a thrust fault where the African plate drives under the Eurasian plate at a rate of 4 millimeters per year. Slow accumulation, sudden release. Magnitude estimates range from 8.5 to 9.0 energy release, equivalent to 32,000 Hiroshima bombs detonated simultaneously. The rupture zone extended for 125 miles along the seafloor. Vertical displacement, up to 33 feet in some sections. Trillions of tons of ocean water punched upward in a single hydraulic shock. The tsunami began propagating outward at 500 miles per h, are in the deep Atlantic. In Lisbon, the shaking came in 3 distinct pulses. The first wave collapsed poorly built structures. The second toppled stone buildings. The third brought down the cathedrals. Lisbon was built on limestone and clay sediments. Soft ground. Seismic waves amplified through liquefaction. Buildings didn't just crack, they imploded. Stone vaults weighing hundreds of tons pancaked straight down.
God,
It was All Saints' Day. The churches were packed. When the Carmel convent collapsed, the death toll inside exceeded 1,000. They were praying for salvation. Physics crushed them under 40 feet of masonry. Here is the survival paradox. Those who ran into churches for divine protection died in the highest concentrations. Those who ignored religious instinct and ran toward open plazas survived. Stone buildings became vertical tombs. Open ground was neutral. Elevation was salvation. Anna Maria Siebra, a washerwoman, was at the Rocio Plaza when the shaking began. Open square, no structures overhead. She dropped to her knees, not in prayer, but to lower her center of gravity. She survived the earthquake. Manuel da Silva, a merchant, was inside the Igreja de Feo Nicolau, near the waterfront. When the shaking stopped, the walls were still standing, cracked, but intact. He stayed inside, believing the structure had passed the test. He was wrong. The tsunami was already moving. At 10:10 a.m., 30 minutes after the earthquake, the sea withdrew. The Tagus River receded so far that the riverbed was exposed for hundreds of yards. Shipwrecks appeared, anchors stuck in mud, fish flopping in the morning light. Thousands of people walked out onto the exposed seabed. Curiosity. Salvage instinct, they didn't know they were standing in the impact zone. At 10:20 a.m., the first wave returned, height at the river mouth, 20 feet, but the Tagus narrowed as it entered the city. The funnel effect compressed the flow. By the time the wave reached the Terreiro do Pie Feo, the Royal Plaza at the waterfront, the wave stood 40 feet high speed, 35 miles per HRA4. Story wall of water moving faster than a human sprints. It swept inland for half a mile. Manuel da Silva, still inside the damaged church near the shore, heard the roar. He ran for the door. The wave hit the building's western wall at 1.2 million pounds of hydrodynamic force per square meter. The cracked masonry gave way instantly. The structure collapsed inward. Manuel was crushed under the debris and drowned simultaneously. His body was never recovered. Anna Maria, the washerwoman at Rocio Plaza, was 80 feet above sea level and 1,200 feet inland. The wave didn't reach her. Elevation saved her.
Get down,
At 10:50
quickly.
a.m., the second wave arrived, larger. This one penetrated a full mile inland, flooding the lower Baixa district entirely.
Is everyone okay?
At 11:20 a.m., the third wave, the largest estimated height, 50 feet at the waterfront.
God.
The water didn't just flood, it scoured. Buildings already weakened by the earthquake were torn from their foundations and swept into a churning slurry of debris, bodies, and salt water. The waves retreated, dragging thousands of corpses into the Atlantic. But the killing wasn't finished. The earthquake had knocked over candles, oil lamps, and cooking fires, with thousands of wooden structures damaged and debris scattered everywhere. The fires spread. By noon, Lisbon was burning. The firestorm lasted 5 days. In the narrow streets of the Alfama district, the fires merged into a single convective column, a fire tornado. Temperatures exceeded 1,000 degrees Celsius. Stone melted. Survivors who had escaped the earthquake and tsunami were incinerated in buildings they thought were safe. Joaquim Rodrigues, a blacksmith, survived the earthquake by standing in his doorway. survived the tsunami by being 100 feet above sea level. On the 2nd of November, he was trapped by the firestorm in a stone warehouse near the Esteo Jorge Castle. The building didn't burn. He roasted inside it. His remains were found weeks later, carbonized in a seated position. The final death toll is disputed. Contemporary estimates range from 60,000 to 100,000. Modern analysis suggests 87,000 is the median probability. 15,000 died in the earthquake. 25,000 drowned in the tsunami. 47,000 burned in the firestorm. The tsunami didn't stop at Lisbon. It crossed the Atlantic in Morocco. The wave reached 50 feet, destroying the cities of Safi and Agadir, 10,000 dead. In the Caribbean, observers in Barbados recorded unusual wave activity at 2 p.m. local time, exactly the travel time for a 500-mile-per-hour wavefront crossing 4,000 miles of open ocean. Lisbon had no warning system, no concept of a warning system. Seismology as a science didn't exist yet. The Richter scale wouldn't be invented for another 180 years. They didn't know what had hit them. Sebastião José Fé de Carvalho e Melo, the Portuguese Secretary of State, later Marquis of Pombal, took control within hours. His first order, bury the dead and feed the living. His second, send surveyors into the ruins with a questionnaire. How long did the shaking last? Which direction did it come from? How high was the water? He was building the first systematic post-disaster forensic investigation in history. Those answers would later form the foundation of modern seismology. Here is what they learned. The earthquake originated offshore. The tsunami arrived in 3 waves, 30 minutes apart. The third wave was the largest buildings on bedrock survived better than those on sediment. Open ground was safer than enclosed structures. And the cycle would repeat. The Azores-Gibraltar Fault accumulates strain at 4 millimeters per year. Since 1755, it has accumulated 1.08 meters of slip deficit. The fault is loaded. Modern Lisbon has a population of 2.9 million in the greater metropolitan area. Most of the construction is post-1960, built to updated seismic codes after the 1969 update. But the old Alfama and Moreira districts still contain pre-1900 unreinforced masonry. The Tagus River funnel effect remains unchanged. If a magnitude 8.7 earthquake strikes the same fault segment today, the tsunami will behave identically, 3 waves, 30-minute intervals. The third wave will be the largest. The difference is this. Portugal now has a national seismic monitoring network. Tsunami warning buoys in the Atlantic, evacuation sirens along the coast. The Portuguese Institute for Sea and Atmosphere can issue a warning within 8 minutes of detection. That gives Lisbon 22 minutes before the first wave, 22 minutes to move 500,000 people from the waterfront to high ground. The mathematics are brutal. Average human walking speed, 3 miles per h. Our distance from waterfront to 80-foot elevation, 0.7 miles required time. 14 minutes, that assumes no panic, no gridlock, no falling debris from the earthquake. The margin is 8 minutes. The geology hasn't changed. The fault is active. The question isn't whether it will rupture again. The question is whether 22 minutes is enough.